work. And most importantly, I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless us with the blessings. My brothers and sisters, time flies and time waits for nobody. There is one great lesson of life that we have always learnt, and I am hopeful and I pray that you will remember it. We don't remember often enough the lessons of life. We don't often remember how to draw lessons from the events that happens around us. Sometimes we're oblivious. Sometimes we are completely submerged in our own world, not really realizing how to learn from the events that are unfolding around us. You know, there are three types of people. But before I tell you about the three types of people, let me tell you where I am. I'm at the Palmer's Green Masjid, mashallah. And of course, the masjid is closed because of coronavirus. Collective prayer is not happening. Jum'ah is not happening. And we're recommending that you stay at home and you pray, inshallah, and you make dua for all of us. But it's important for the masajids to be able to broadcast some of its messages on key days like Friday. So you don't feel left out or missing the action itself. So here I am, alhamdulillah, doing my usual Friday talk on my rota day, second Friday of the month, alhamdulillah. Brothers and sisters, I want to bring to your attention a great lesson from our current happenings of the world. But before I do that, there are three types of people in the world. The first type are those people who watch while things are happening around them. The second type of people are those who wonder when things have happened. And the third type of people are those people who make things happen. The question I have is, which one are you? Are you the one who just watches as things happen? Are you the one who says, oh, what happened? You wonder after it's happened. Or are you the type of person who actually makes things happen around them? You are the one who drives. You're the one who leads. You're the one who makes a change in the world. Change has to be led. Change will have to be driven from the front. So I want to draw some lessons from what we have learned. I would like to draw some lessons from the US election that just took place. United States of America held its election 3rd of November, and we saw the election unfolding right in front of us. The entire world waited with bated breath, wanting to know what's the outcome of this election. Who has won and who actually lost? There was a pendulum constantly swinging in each direction, either way. Is it going to be Joe Biden? Is it going to be Donald Trump? If it's going to be Donald Trump, is it going to be another 4 years of Trumpish American government and their policies? Or is it going to be Joe Biden? And would Joe Biden, if he wins, bring a new era, breath of fresh air for America? Would it find its own motto, with its own mojo, as they say, American mojo of freedom, American mojo of liberty? Would it return to normality, or would it continue doing what it did before under Donald Trump? I would like to draw some lessons as part of our Friday talk today. Do you know why I would like to draw some lessons? Because I believe there's a great lesson to be learned. Lesson number one. In America, when you vote, your vote counts. You may not agree with me, but analyze it like this. Each and every citizen of America were entitled to electing their own leader. Between the two, some of you may say, oh, what a choice between the bad and the worst. Yes, I understand. But either way, they had a choice. That choice was that they would choose between the two. Who would lead them for the next 4 years? And every citizen had a right to vote. And when they were voting, they did not fear that their votes would be stolen. They did not fear that their ballot boxes would be stuffed by fake votes. They did not fear that their family members would get kidnapped, executed, prosecuted, fictitious charges levied against them. Prosecution would be rolled out against them and their family. The citizens of America did not worry about any of that. They voted. And guess what happened? Their votes counted. And my brothers and sisters, that is ultimately the greatest lesson I'd like to draw your attention to. Compare this to what's happening in other parts of the world. Whether you're in Russia or China, whether you live in the Asian countries, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, whether you live in Iraq, Syria, or Saudi Arabia, or Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, whether you live in North African countries, Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Somalia, Sudan, or you live in the Africa itself, the continent, the thick of it, East, West, and Central Africa, and South Africa, wherever you live, compare your right as a citizen to what we saw in America. I can talk about the country where my parents come from, Bangladesh. You don't have to vote. Your votes are cast by government party before you even arrive at the booth. In fact, overnight, boxes upon boxes are filled with fake votes that has been cast by the members of the governing party, the political party that's in power. And before the election is complete, the election result is already determined. And if you oppose it, like in Egypt, you get locked up, you get killed. In fact, in places like Egypt, you're not allowed to vote or make a choice. You're only allowed to do something, and that is to make a choice between no choices. On your ballot box, on your ballot paper, you will find the name of the president with no opposition. And if there are one or two opposition, it will only be symbolic opposition. And often the president, who is the candidate, who is standing in the election, who has been the president or the dictator general, will probably win 98.9% of the votes, and in some cases 99.9% of the vote. And the 0.1% of the vote that has not been given to the president is a gift from the president to the opposition, just to show that there is some flair, there is some democracy going on. You know, I am embarrassed to sit here and tell you how disgraceful, disgusting such democratic, so-called democratic processes are in many of the Muslim countries, whether it is in Egypt or Bangladesh or Pakistan or Indonesia or Malaysia or any other country in the Muslim world. I tell you, it's a disgrace. But what we learn from America is that people's vote counted. Isn't that Islamic? I want to put it to you. Doesn't Islam guarantee all of us the right to elect and select our leadership? It does. Rasulullah showed it by his own example. He left different models of people selecting and electing their leadership in each of the Khalifa that was selected after the death of Rasulullah. Abu Bakr was chosen by people around him. Umar ibn Khattab was chosen by people around him. Uthman ibn Affan was chosen by people around. There was a choice people had. Today, in the developing world, in Muslim countries, in Muslim majority countries, people don't have that choice. They don't have the right to vote. So the greatest lesson I learned from this American election is that America, by giving people the right to choose, is exercising one of the greatest Islamic right, called our right to elect and select our leadership. So America has more Islam than most Muslim countries. I know you don't like my statement, but my brothers and sisters, you know I don't really worry about whether you like my statement or not. I'll tell you the truth. I tell you the truth. Not only in America, in Britain our votes count. In Europe, votes count. In Australia, votes count. In Canada, votes count. In most Western nations, European influenced nations, votes count. And yet in the Muslim nations, votes don't count. Why? Why have we lost the spirit of golden Islamic principle of us having the right to elect, select, account, and deselect our leaders? Why have we lost that? Because we have lost the spirit of Islam. Second lesson I learned from the American election is that you can be the most powerful president of America, but you cannot alter the outcome of the election. You can't. Donald Trump tried. All the cry foul, he made all sorts of accusations, voter fraud, the election has been stolen for him, there is conspiracy going on, the stuffing of ballot boxes, lies upon lies upon lies, none of them have been proven. Even his own aide, his advisors, his team, his lawyers are struggling to find evidence of fraudulent vote activities, election activities. He couldn't find one in a country as big as America. Isn't that a great lesson for us to learn, my brothers and sisters? If we haven't learned from this lesson, where will we learn lesson ever? So A president couldn't alter the outcome of the election. We thought Donald Trump will make it happen for himself, right? It would have been the case in any other Muslim country, I can tell you that. If it was Bangladesh, I can guarantee you that there would have been an outcome determined before the election had taken place. And military, security services, the president, the prime minister, all would have made sure the outcome they have determined would be the outcome. Nothing else would matter. I remember seeing in Egypt, I remember seeing the elections in Algeria, I've seen elections in Morocco, I've seen the so-called election in other many countries determined by the sitting president or the prime minister. We learn from America, even the powerful president sitting in the office cannot determine his own fate. Did you not see from his face? Donald Trump, even I felt sorry for the poor guy, marching up and down, causing all sorts of tantrum like a baby, like a child in the playground, petulant child looking for attention, making all sorts of accusations, still couldn't alter the outcome of the election. He lost, even though he wanted to win. In fact, he even declared that he had won. But counted votes are more powerful than the presidential decree. Don't you learn a lesson from this? This is another Islamic principle. Another Islamic principle, that the authority of the elected ruler does not superimpose itself over the judiciary, the executive, the independence between all of these institutions of government. If a politician was to have the right to influence the outcome of the election, judiciary and the executive would not be independent. Don't you learn this example? Don't we feel proud that we see in our living memory election results respected even by the sitting president? Shame that most Muslim countries don't take even one iota of a lesson from American election. The third lesson that I learned, my brothers and sisters, is a phenomenal lesson. The police, the military, the election commissioners, the bodies that supervise the election were neutral all the way. Donald Trump could not call the army on the street to make sure his people's votes only count. He couldn't do it. Even though his sons were calling out, screaming, saying, stop counting, stop counting. On some states, stop counting. On some states, continue counting whenever it suits you. And yet, police, security services, election commission, and their officers always remain neutral. What does that say about American electoral process? You may be thinking I'm overpraising America. I'm not overpraising America. I'm praising where praise is due. A system that works. And in most Muslim countries, there is a rotten system that doesn't work, has not worked, and there is very little likelihood of changing for a system to work unless people rise and demand a change. So third lesson is security services, police force, and the election commissioners are independent. They may have a vote of their own, but they cannot force people to vote in a particular way, nor can they intervene to alter the election. Compare that to Egypt. Egyptian government, current government, Sisi's government, overthrew an elected government of Morsi. Even if Morsi was not a good government, he still came to power by the choice of people. If choice of people were truly given to the Egyptian people under freedom, and if Sisi would have become the president of Egypt, would have all said, fine, no problem. But that's not the case. He came and overthrew an elected government. He's a military butcher, a dictator, killed, prosecuted, persecuted, and allowed people to rot in prison, executed people arbitrarily, kidnapped people and disappeared them. That's the record of Sisi in power today. That's not a democratic government. That's not an Islamic government. That's a rotten government, for me, to be honest with you. My brothers and sisters, if we are truly learning to change and progress and return to our Islamic values, you will find that judiciary and the leadership should never interfere in each other's affairs. I'll give you an example. Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu was the Khalif of the Muslim Ummah at that time. And a man had, in the marketplace, as Ali was walking, he saw a man selling a coat. Ali looked at the coat and said, that's my coat. Why are you selling my coat? The man said, no, it's my coat. Ali said, that's my coat. The man said, it's my coat. There's a dispute. Ali ibn Abi Talib is the Khalif of the Muslim Ummah at that time. Khalif, like the Prime Minister or the President. Not just by one country, but the entire Muslim world. Ali ibn Abi Talib said, okay, I'm claiming this is my coat, and you're claiming this is yours, come to the judge, let the judge decide. The trader who was selling the jacket said, okay, let's go to the judge. He came to the judge. The judge asked Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ya Ali, do you have evidence to suggest that this is your jacket? Do you have any evidence to prove that this is your jacket? Ali ibn Abi Talib said, I don't have evidence, but I have my son who is my witness, Hassan. The judge said, with due respect, Ya Ali, your son is your son. He cannot be your witness. In a court of law, your son's witness is not admissible. Really sorry. Do you have anybody else? Ali ibn Abi Talib said, no. The judge said, then I'm afraid I'm going to have to rule against you. The trader, the jacket is yours. Ali, the jacket is not yours because you could not prove it's yours. Hearing this and seeing the response and the independence between the Khalifa and the judge, the trader who was not a Muslim stood up and said, I've got to say something. The judge says, go ahead. He said, I came thinking that I will not get justice today. I came thinking, he's the Khalifa of the Ummah, he's going to get the jacket. I was ready for it. I was also even ready to be punished. But what I heard from you, Judge, today, it makes me 100% sure that Islamic system is a just system. Therefore, I say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. And Ali, this is your jacket. I found it on the street when you dropped it. Please take it. Examples upon examples from the life of the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions, you will find how the law has always been unique and separate from the individual who are the rulers. Rulers could not enforce or interfere. Judiciary has always remained separate. It is in Islam, and I believe that very example in American system reminds me of a golden Islamic rule called separation between judiciary and politician. Separation between the executive and the political office. That's the third lesson I learned. The fourth lesson I learned from the American election, my brothers and sisters, is that in American election, people actually care about who their leader is going to be. They do. If they didn't, why would nearly 150 million people, over 70% of American population, come and vote for their election? Why would they? They care about their future. Sadly, in many developing world, Muslim countries included, people don't care. Perhaps they're resigned to the fact that, well, whether you vote or no vote, outcome is going to be the same. What's the point? When you resign, that's what you get. When you resign, that's what you get. People don't resign. Even if 70 million plus people voted for Donald Trump, and even if 75 million plus people voted for Joe Biden, it is still an indication of how people care. 4 lessons I've drawn from American election. Can you give me an example of all these 4 in existence in the Muslim countries? That there is free and fair election, that there is people who have a choice and their votes are respected, judiciary always stays independent, and people care about their future. Give me an example of a Muslim country where this is happening. I know you will be saying, I can give you one, Turkey. Turkey is an exception. Turkey is the exception to the rule. How about Pakistan? Pakistan is trying. May Allah make them successful. Say Ameen. How about in Tunisia? They're trying. May Allah make them successful. We say Ameen. But out of nearly 65 to 70 Muslim nations across the globe, we only have one fully fledged democracy in the Muslim world that is working very well, called Turkey. And the rest of them, out of the rest, maybe 3 or 4 that you can give an example as a country in transition. What about the rest of the 70 nations? What happened to the rest of them? If you're going to be claiming to be Muslim, you better get your acts sorted out. If we can't exemplify the true teachings of Islam in our nations, you know, when non-Muslims argue with me about Islam, about this, that, and the other, they always say, please give me an example of a Muslim society where we can see true rule of law, true freedom, true democracy is actually in function. I struggle to give them one example. Because in a massive Muslim nation, 1.8 billion, if I can't give them 20 examples, I haven't given an example. In 1.8 billion population, if vast majority are not exemplifying Islam, then it is a rotten example of Islam within the Muslim world. No wonder great scholars when they traveled through Europe in the earlier days, they said, we have traveled through a place where we found very few Muslims, but a lot of Islam. And when we traveled in the Muslim world, we have seen so many Muslims, but very little Islam. What do they mean? They mean the saying of Rasulullah, ad-din wal mu'amala, religion is in your social, political, economic interaction, the relationship that you build with one another, how you run your country, how you run your economic affairs, how you run your social structure, how you run your country. This is deen. This is called deen, the religion of Allah. And in our Muslim societies, we are miserably failing in exemplifying any of that to that example and that standard. And we cry, we constantly complain, moan and whinge about the failures. Change it then yourselves. You have the capacity to change. Why aren't you changing? Now, brothers and sisters, you may be saying, you're talking to us. We live in Britain. Yes, I know. And I'm giving you what we learn from American democracy and how we can teach our friends and families and relatives that they can also change, how we can inspire the Muslim world to change too. No wonder some of the scholars have said, Muslim world will only change by the leadership provided by the Muslims living in the non-Muslim countries. Because we live in freedom, we understand rule of law, we understand processes, we understand system, and we respect them fully. We don't usurp it for our own interest. We don't bypass it because it's self-interest. We don't do it because we think it's important for my selfish need. No, we understand that these things are intrinsic values that can't be violated in a democracy. Why is it that the Muslims can't understand this very basic Islamic principle? Why? Because of lack of knowledge, because of lack of insight, lack of understanding of the life of the Prophet, and lack of understanding of the life of the companions, how they lived, how they ruled, and how they lived together in harmony and peace. So I know there are problems with America. Don't misunderstand me. I fully understand American foreign policy stinks. I know that. American foreign policy is rotten. I know that too. I know America is biased towards some nations. I understand. Take the example of recent times. America decided under Donald Trump to sell more than 20 billion pounds worth of fighter jets to UAE, United Arab Emirates, because they signed normalization treaty with Israel. But Israel complained, saying, why would you sell arms to our enemy? You know what America said to Israel? We will never allow any Arab country in your neighborhood to become militarily stronger than you. We'll always keep them inferior. We'll always sell them substandard equipments. We'll always sell them the sell-by dates gone aircrafts and weapons. And we will sell you, Israel, the most sophisticated advanced weaponry because we want to keep you stronger. We understand American foreign policy is double standard, full of hypocrisy. We understand it, but please don't ignore the political system that works when it comes to people's right to choose their leaders, account them, take them out of offices or give them offices. Please acknowledge that it works and we could learn from it. Yes, I would like to see a change in America. I would like to see a change in America. I would like to see how it changes and deals with the foreign countries. But America doesn't need to really change. It will do what it thinks is best. Where we need change is change in the developing world. Muslim world especially, they need to change. We need to feel empowered. Allah says that in the Quran. Allah will not change your condition. Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah will not change your condition if you're going to be deaf, dumb and blind and go and sell your votes for a few penny. Sell your own father and your mother because somebody is going to give you a bit of power and a bit of prestige and privilege. You are prepared to sacrifice your principle in your faith because you think you're going to become rich overnight. If you're going to be like this, forget about change, forget about improvement, forget about living in a life and a time of a golden time that we always quote from the time of the companions and those who came after. If we are going to be like them, that's when we will be deserving of and worthy of such an accolade. So brothers and sisters, I have great hope. My hope is these examples that we see around us, we can draw from them. And we can teach other nations how to be objective. The justice system in Islam is absolutely unique. There is nothing like this in the world. We can present this to America. Why not? By being involved in the process, in the system, by getting involved in elections in America, in Britain, by being parliamentarians. Some of you complain, we don't have many good parliamentarians who represent the Muslim interest. Well, because you're not interested in voting for somebody who truly is going to represent the Muslim interest. You're only interested in voting for your brethren, somebody who comes from your tribe, somebody who comes from your culture, somebody who speaks your ethnic language. That's why you are where you are. So I believe the future is going to be bright if we change. And change can only happen when we want to have that change happen around us. Remember, I began by saying there are three types of people: those who watch while things are happening, those who wonder when things have happened, and those who make things happen. I'd like all of us to make things happen. Let's begin that change from our homes. Begin that change from our societies. Begin that change from our countries. And globally there will be a change. May Allah protect us all, my brothers and sisters. May Allah forgive us for our shortcomings. And may Allah make this world a free place again. A free place where human dignity and honor is respected. Where people have exactly the same right wherever they live. And people are free to fear none and to worship Allah alone. وآخر الدعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.